Hi there, it's Tracy Kiernan from stepbysteppainting.net, and this tutorial will show you how to paint a simple and easy hibiscus on a 10" by 10" canvas. This tutorial also comes with an optional traceable. I will not be using the traceable for this tutorial, but I'll link it in the post if you want to use that to print out and apply to your canvas, so that's available for you. And I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the background of this painting is a gradient of an orange to a yellow to a white, and I'm using a 3/4 inch flat wash brush to do this. So this is Cadmium Hue, and I'm just mixing a little bit of white into the orange to lighten that orange up a bit. I also added a bit of water into the paint so that it will be a little bit thin and also flow and blend well. So I'm going to start at the top and go about 1/3 of the way down with this light orange color. If you want, you can paint the sides of the canvas as well. So it should be a nice thin layer applied evenly on the canvas. And then I'm going to grab some yellow, but first get a towel and wipe off my brush. Grab some yellow, a little bit of white, and mix that together. A little bit of water into it, and I'm going to start below the orange and blend it up. So the yellow and white combination blends up into the orange gently, and then I'm going to work my way down. A little bit of that orange is blending into that yellow a bit, but that's okay. You can see there's a few streaks of orange in there. Just kind of brushing up into that transition zone where that orange and yellow meet. And then I'm going to work my way down the canvas. So our yellow is going to turn into a much lighter yellow. And I'm going to wipe the brush off next and grab the white. So at this point, my white's all mixed up with a little bit of orange and yellow, but if you need to freshen your white, you can. This should be white mixed with a little bit of yellow. And so this is the lightest part. So I'm going to start below that yellow part and I'm going to blend it up into the yellow part. And then, so this transition zone where that yellow and light yellow meet, I'm going to kind of work that area, get that paint to blend the colors together very gently. And then I'll blend it right all the way up. This is a smaller canvas, so I'm able to go back up and blend and work my colors a little bit more. If I was working on a bigger canvas, it may be dry by now, but it's a smaller area, so it's not drying as fast. But there is our simple gradient background for our tropical hibiscus, and this needs to dry before we can go ahead and pencil in our hibiscus drawing. So at this point, my canvas is dry. I'm going to go ahead and do the hibiscus drawing. And remember, there is a template you can print off and trace onto your canvas if you don't want to do the drawing. I started in the middle of my canvas and I'm doing this first petal. So it is narrow towards the middle, but then it goes wider and the edges of the petals are very loose, kind of wavy. And I'm going to do another petal. So this petal is going to be underneath the previous one. So I'm going to draw it that way so that it looks like it's going underneath it. A little bit of a different size. And so I'm doing 5 petals here. So this petal is going off the side of the canvas, which is nice with using the square canvas. We can have our composition of our flower going off the canvas. And this petal, again, it's very loose and wavy on the edges. The inner part of it goes to, they all kind of meet in the middle. And then this one is going to overlap this petal. So I'm just making a very loose, wavy line. And then I'm going to erase the part where it's overlapping the previous petal. So we have our 5 petals, and then I can go back in and kind of darken some of these and readjust how I want my petal to be overlapping, or if I want one to be overlapping the other, I can go ahead and adjust that. And then definitely when we start painting this in, we'll be able to adjust a lot of things as we go along. The drawing is just a guideline. So this is the middle piece, the pistil part of our hibiscus. So it starts out kind of wide and curved at the bottom, and then it goes outwards to a point. And I don't need to draw the little circle pollen pieces on it because those will be painted in. I'm going to go ahead and start the actual painting part. This is a number 12 bright brush. It's a it's a flat brush that's about a 1/2 inch wide. So any kind of small 1/2 inch brush can work for this. And then I'm going to load my palette with 2 colors, medium magenta and titanium white. So pink and white are the 2 colors, 2 main colors of this. I'll incorporate some darker magenta in there later. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double load my brush. That means I'm going to load it in the pink and load it in the white, kind of drag it out on my palette a little bit, but I'm not mixing those 2 colors all the way together because I'm going to use the fact that both those colors are going to show up here. But I'm going to do the tip of my brush and outline the petal. And then when I fill it in, I'm going to use the full width of the brush and I'm going to drag outwards. And you can see my white kind of streaking and showing up here. I'm going to purposely try to make the outer part of my hibiscus white. So the furthest part of the petal on the edge is a little bit lighter. As we go in the middle, our hibiscus is a lot darker. And so I'm going to make sure I have a little bit more magenta in that area and not so much white. So I can even grab a little bit more magenta there. And my strokes are curving and going in that direction of the shape of the petal. And then I'm going to continue on and repeat the same thing for each of the petals. Now we have overlapping going on here. So I'm going to kind of alter this color a little bit so that's lighter right here. And then of course I'll go in and make sure that this bottom part's a little bit darker, but that extra pop of white right there on the right side is going to allow it to kind of stand out from the petal that's next to it. So again, full width strokes, letting that pink and white kind of blend and do its thing. This is not a realistic hibiscus. It's loose and a little bit abstract. So you don't have to worry about going into a lot of details with this. It's a simplified version of a hibiscus. And then just adding a bit of that magenta right there in the middle using the full width of my stroke and just kind of letting those pink and white colors loosely blend together. And then I'm just going to continue on here. So this petal's overlapping a bit, so I'm going to make sure that color is a little bit lighter than the one next to it. And then go ahead and fill it in with more magenta towards the middle, working my way to the outer edge of it with that pink and white combination, and go ahead and outline the rest of this shape and then fill it in using the full width of the brush. A little pop of water in there if it's not flowing as well. This is just the first coat of paint. You want to get it pretty solid, so we want to make sure we're covering all that orange in the background, but I will go back in there and add some more darker tones and some highlights in a little bit. So grab some white, maybe drag some white right there on the edge. Dragging it downwards to the middle. And then I'm going to go on and repeat the same thing for the next petal. So you kind of have to decide if that's going to be overlapping or if it's going to be behind the previous one. I'm going to have it overlap, so I did my color a little bit lighter. So outlining the outer edge using the full width of the brush. Middle part has a little bit more magenta. The nice thing with using this flat bright brush is that if you notice that I can use the tip of it for outlining, using the full width of it to create thicker strokes, and I could change it and kind of curve it in different directions. Grabbing a little bit more white to make the outer part of the petal a little bit lighter. And then I'll go ahead and fill in the rest of this shape. And of course, if you drew it or used the traceable or however you got your picture of the drawing on the canvas, you can adjust it. So if you want your petal to go in a different direction, or as you're painting you want it to create a different shape of it, you are definitely allowed to do that. Go outside of those lines. So this one, kind of the same thing, decide where it's going to be overlapping. I chose a lighter, more white on my brush that time to get it to show up. If you need to wipe your brush off because it's starting to get overloaded with paint, you can definitely do that. Sometimes if blending doesn't seem to be doing what you want it to do, it might be because there's too much paint on your brush, so it's harder to control. Okay, so next I'm going to load my palette with some Quinacridone Magenta and use a different brush. I'm going to start painting the center part of the hibiscus so that it is darker in the center. So this is the number 8 round brush, loading it with quinacridone. And I'm going to take that and I'm going to drag these strokes from the center part of each of the petals and curving outwards. So you want to have your curve kind of go in the direction of that petal it's going to give that petal a little bit more form to it. So I'm just taking that brush and dragging it outwards from the center out, and it's creating kind of a point to the magenta. So I'm taking it, dragging it outwards to create that shape of the petal. You can even kind of extend it a little bit, but I'm not having my magenta color go all the way to the edge of the petal. So it's not going on the entire petal, it's just going about a half away. And I'm just kind of creating some light texture in there. Then I'm going to grab a little bit of white on my brush without rinsing it. And I'm going to do the same thing, but on the outer part of the petal. And I'm not going to do it too much, just a few little light highlight lines. Maybe I can outline the outer edge of the petal just a little bit, but I'm very, very loosely, very lightly adding that white just on the outer part of it. And then right here too, that pop of white. And you can even use the white to have some of your petals stand out from one another. Just very loosely adding that white. So not too much white, otherwise it would be taken over very fast. Loosely outline the outer part of that petal. I'm going to do another layer of an even darker color in the center, and I'm going to do this by adding Hooker's Green Hue Permanent to my palette, so a dark green paint color. And I'm actually going to mix a very, very tiny amount of this dark green into the Quinacridone Magenta. So on your palette, just mix, it's not equal amounts there, it's probably about 4 parts of the Quinacridone to 1 part green. Just gradually add it in there until it's super dark. And so that green is allowing our magenta to become a dark magenta. And I'm just taking that and I'm adding that same kind of strokes as the other ones. So in the middle, just kind of dragging the brush outwards in a curved direction. And it's creating a darker part of the center of our hibiscus. So I'm just taking that, dragging it outwards. Can even loosely use that for some outlining, but just be really careful with adding that dark color. Before I can do anything else to the hibiscus, I'm going to let this dry and I'm going to go on to our leaves. So the leaves were done with this same dark green color, and I can go ahead and add some more to my palette because I'll need more than that. I'm still using the round brush, the 8 round brush, and I'm going to mix a little bit of that magenta in there, darken my green up a little bit, and I'm just going to go ahead and paint my leaves. So hibiscus leaves are, they've got rounded, and they're rounded, but they go to a point, but since this is going off the canvas, we don't see the point, so we're just going to kind of estimate what that would look like and go ahead and paint that in. So I'm going to paint that in solid with that green color. A little bit of that magenta on my brush makes it a bit darker, gives that green some more depth to it. I can even grab some white and make a tint of green. I can do the line in the middle and the veins on the side and the veins on that side. So there's my simple leaf. Add some more color in between some of the veins, the lighter green in there, kind of a second coat on the leaf. And then I'm going to go ahead and do another leaf over here in the lower right. So same thing with that green and the white combination. You can add some magenta into it to darken it up a bit if you want. So keep it very simple, loose. And then you can have your leaves and petals go off the side of the canvas. I did not choose to do that for this demonstration, but because it's a stretched canvas, you can have it go outwards. I'm just taking this white here and I'm kind of loosely outlining these petals that are overlapping. Get them to kind of pop a little bit. So that's what I did there with that white. And then we have some more area to work with out here. So we can do a different kind of leaf. If you want, you can do a stem with some smaller leaves. If you wanted to do palm, like palm tree leaves, you can do that. You can do more of just the regular hibiscus large leaves if you want to do that. So you have some things to play around with the background. So I just did 2 stems. This is my other stem, and I'm just doing a smaller leaf attached to it. It's very simple. Then I'll do the other leaf as well on this one. So another small leaf, grab a little bit of white, do the center white line, and then the little diagonal line. So that white just kind of blends with that green to create that effect. Then I'm going to go in and just kind of touch up some of these leaves, make this stem a little bit thicker, second coat. Then I'll go in and add some more green on some of these other leaves. So I'm just adding second coat on there. And then we can go back, and if any of our leaves are accidentally overlapping our petals, we can go back and touch up the edges of the petals to make it look like that those are overlapping. You can just go in and mix your pink and white again. So this is just a light pink that I have on my brush. The white mixed a little bit of pink. I'm just going in there, maybe add some more white little highlights on the edges of the petals very loosely, kind of dragging it down from the outer part. So these hibiscus flowers, the outer part, for this particular hibiscus, the outer part of the petals are lighter, inner part, center is darker. I'm going to go in and add another coat of dark in the center. So with the magenta with the green, I'm just going to go in and add some more little strokes of that dark magenta in there. And I'm just going in there with another coat of that dark magenta. So super dark right there in the center, and that's going to create some really pretty contrast when we do our middle pistil piece. I'm going to go ahead and dry my painting, especially in this area over here, because I'll be painting that middle pistil piece next, and that part should be dry so that our pretty bright yellow doesn't mix with any of those dark colors. So I'll be using the number 8 round brush, and on my palette I'm going to make a bright yellow by mixing about equal amounts of yellow with white. And I'll grab a little bit of orange in there as well. I'll twist my brush to get the paint right there on the tip of the bristles, and then I'm going to paint the pistil part. So it's going to start out rounded right there, right exactly in the center, rounded at the bottom, a little wider as well on the bottom, and then it's going to quickly get thinner and go to a point, so you can decide how far that piece is going to go. And I'm just adding a second coat to it. It should be nice and bright, so that white in that color should make that yellow stand out very nicely. And then I'm going to add a bit more orange to the bottom part of it. Just a little bit of orange right there on the bottom makes that bottom piece a tad bit darker, but I still want it to stand out and have enough contrast against the darker color that's below it. And then with a little bit of white, I'm going to go ahead and loosely outline the right part of it with the white, just to make it a tad bit brighter on the left side, not the right side, the left side. Just adding just a little bit of white right there on the left. Kind of a very loose, thin stroke because that piece gets very thin. And then this is the fun part. I'm just taking white and dotting the little pollen pieces on the end of it. So I'm just doing little dots all throughout with the white, and I can even grab yellow in there, and I can even do some magenta dots as well. That yellow won't show up very well unless there's white mixed with it. So if you just try to do yellow, it'll be too translucent to show up unless you grab white and yellow together. So just little tiny dots. Then I'll rinse and dry. I'm going to do some darker magenta color dots. So with the Quinacridone Magenta, just go in there and do a few of those in there. Adding a bit of magenta right there on the bottom of that piece, and just take my finger and blend it up a little bit. Then I'm going to rinse and dry and take this yellow and white and I'm going to do one more stroke of this bright yellow in the center piece, just on the left side of it. Just a quick stroke to brighten that up just a tad. And then I'm going to do, this is completely optional, kind of a creative direction that I took, but I wanted to take this light yellow and loosely incorporate some of this light yellow into some of the flower. Give it some bright yellow highlights. Just very loosely, very subtly on each of the petals towards the end of the petal. I can even go in with this yellow and add a bit of yellow to some of the leaves. Just a few subtle strokes of that yellow into the leaves. And so we have kind of an open area in the upper left. You can leave it like this. You can add more big leaves, but I'm going to do a palm tree style leaf over here in the upper left. Again, optional. You don't have to do this. I'm just mixing a darker green here on my palette by putting a little bit of magenta into that green. So I'm just going to do a basic, very, very simple palm tree leaf. So doing a line, and then we can do the little palm fronds coming out from that line. So I'm just kind of putting pressure on my brush to make the stroke a little bit thicker, but then thin, and go to a point. Grab a little bit of white and mix that green in there, and I can do some more lighter color palm tree leaves. So it's up to you if you want. If you like the look of the hibiscus big leaves, you can add some more of those if you want. You can get creative. You can even do, I don't know, you wouldn't have room for another little flower, but you could possibly do another little tropical flower up there, kind of going off on the canvas. And then I'm going to go ahead and do some darker palm tree leaves, just mixing the magenta into that green, makes it darker. Just another layer of dark tropical palm tree leaves. So keep it simple. So basically, this tutorial is coming to its conclusion. Simple tropical summer painting that you can do. This would be a good one to do with the kids as well, because it's on a smaller canvas. Really simple, easy, fun design. Just a few last minute touch-ups here and there. But that is it, my friends. I hope that you enjoyed painting a tropical hibiscus with me. Thanks for painting with me, and thanks for watching.